In Liberia, the heart of the Ebola outbreak.
When we got news that they closed the border, that was the sign.
How they managed to return home safe.
First, fast, accurate. With Rick Shutt. You're watching WSBT Channel 22 News at 11.
Well, health officials in Spain are scrambling to contain the Ebola virus after 4 people may have been exposed there. The ripple effects from the outbreaks around the world are reaching here in St. Joseph County. WSBT's Suzanne Spencer visited a church in Granger where one pastor just returned from Liberia.
Associate Pastor Matt Mendenhall and 2 other men went to Liberia to work as missionaries at sister churches, a trip that several local people take every year. But the threat of Ebola became too much, so much so that they had to return home early. And this all happened in the capital city in Liberia, where the Ebola outbreak is impacting everyone there. When Harvest Bible Associate Pastor Matt Mendenhall went to Liberia to help other Harvest Bible churches, he wasn't expecting Ebola to force his trip to be cut short.
The posture of Monrovia, the nation's capital city, changed. And before you could just walk into a store or a restaurant and then all of a sudden you couldn't get in without washing your hands with bleach. And people started wearing masks.
Matt and his colleagues stayed only blocks away from Dr. Kent Brantley, who is a medical missionary who contracted Ebola while working in Liberia and has since been cured. While Mendenhall was in Liberia, the threat of Ebola exploded, seemingly overnight.
When we got there, most people didn't believe it. They laughed at us. So they didn't believe that Ebola was a big deal.
But it is a big deal. Mendenhall and his colleagues left 4 days early after the Liberian border shut down, and they feared the airport was next. They said their goodbyes and returned home, where he and his colleagues quarantined themselves for weeks.
It was an interesting feeling to know that we're leaving them behind, possibly on the beginning of an epidemic.
Now the pastors at Harvest Bible in Granger are rethinking their plan of action.
It's affected our ministry because we are not able to now send those teams, obviously.
But the pastors said even though Liberia is facing an incredible challenge, they have something very unique.
But there's one thing that they have that we don't have, and it's this unsinkable joy.
Now, the church is still sending food and resources to people in Liberia. While the threat for Ebola still remains high, they're just not sending people until it becomes much safer.
Stay safe. Yeah. Now, when they returned, what about testing? Did they have to undergo any testing to make sure that they weren't infected?
Right. Well, as soon as they got back, the pastors contacted the CDC right away and said, you know, we were in this area where a lot of people were impacted. What do we do? And the CDC told them to quarantine themselves in their houses. So that's what they did for 3 weeks. And if they didn't have any symptoms, they said then they were pretty much good to go. So they didn't have symptoms, so that was definitely a good thing.
Probably some nervous moments, though, waiting that out, but they're okay.
Right.
Good, Suzanne. Thanks so much. President Obama called the Ebola